Good morning, this is Arline Link. I am here today to show you how I do some of my flowers. I was planning on doing it last night, but I left my spider tripod at the shop. So I'm trying to figure out how to give you the best view. I'm able to work out something here. Now I do use AMACO velvet underglazes. On this particular pot, I've marked off where I'm going to start my flowers. The top will be the purple iris, and then I do the red poppies, and then I do the white daisies with the blue alyssum at the bottom. The purple that I have today is a lighter purple, so I'm going to have to put it on a little thicker than I normally do with the darker purples. This is a lavender. I prefer to use amethyst. But unfortunately, I'm out of it at the moment. Amethyst and the darker purple seem to work pretty good. The lighter colors have a tendency to burn out, so you have to put them on a little thicker. So I use an angled brush and start at the top. And I'm just going to do like an S type. This is the beginning of one of the irises. I like to do 3 of them. For some reason, 3 seems to be a nice number to balance it all out. And for those of you who've done the one-stroke paintings in the past, it's kind of similar to that. My technique's just a little bit different. There we go. Hopefully you can see this. So right now there's just the basic coat, the first coat on there. I'll come back in with the second coat and just do the same type of, like an S or a backwards S. And I do have another one on the other side for those of you who do arrive late, that I can do this. So right now, I've got my second coat on. So what I'm going to do is take my brush and dip it in the purple and the white at the same time. I do just about a third of it. If you're able to see that in the white, come up at the top. Sometimes I might just add a little more white just to give. All right, you can see what that looks like. All right. Do the second one. I apologize if you're not seeing this very well, but as you can see, it's the purple and white together. Now with irises, they have that frilly little top. And depending on how thick this is, I might go back in, add a little more white to a portion of it. Then I take the same brush, dip it in the purple and the white to create the ruffle. Stippling, I guess that's the word you would use for this. And I'll come over 2 or 3 times because it goes on thick when you do it this way. So depending on how frilly you want them to be. Ta-da! And that's my purple irises. Now you see a couple little lumps there, so I'll usually go back in and just kind of smooth them out a little bit. Because if it's with velvets, if you leave that little bit of raise there, it will fire and it will be raised above the rest of it. Okay, so that's my purple irises to start. A little cramped here with these lights the way they are this morning. And what I usually do is I'll go from one, the one I just did the other day had irises all the way around, but this one is a little bit smaller, so I think I'll do both sides. So let's just continue with this side at this point. I am going to do the red poppies. I'm using AMACO Radiant Red. Now with this, it does burn out. So you want to put at least 3 nice coats on to 4. And the first 2 coats I usually do as a base coat. Let me get in here. Again, I do 3, and I leave enough space for my daisies. I've been painting this design long enough that I think I could do it in my sleep sometimes. And it's just a matter of taking the flower, and it's usually about 2 or 3 strokes to give that petaled effect. Just like that. And I make the ones off to the side a little smaller than the one in the middle, or at least I try to. Sometimes it doesn't. The bigger flower likes to, so that's the start of the poppies. Then I'll come back in and do another coat. I'm not worried about the unevenness of the flower itself, because no flower is perfect. They have those ruffled edges, or the way it's laying. You get the curves and the wrinkles and the ruffles. So now you see the red. So there's 2 coats of those on. The center, I don't always go in there because I want to add more for the center of the flower, the yellows and the browns. Now, on my 3rd coat, I will do the same thing I did with the purple. Add a little bit of white to the end, and I'll come in, do one side, and then blend it around. It's not a very good, let's see if I can do it this way. So you get a red and white. So as you can see, a little bit of the highlights there. Now sometimes I might put just a little too much white, so I'll come back in with more red and just do the edge with the white. I need a little cushion here. There we go. See if this is a little better this way. I can see this is a little thin. One of the things about underglazes, sometimes you get them, they're too thick. Sometimes they're thin. This red's a little thin, so that's why I'm putting 3 coats of the red on. And then the 4th coat will include, so you see how the 1 stroke right there just left that streak? I want that more towards the outer edge, so as I brush the 2nd one, I can see it. So those are the poppies. Pretty easy. I need some more red on this one. Now when I started painting these, I did them in acrylics on watering cans. And now I do it on my pottery. I have a few favorite brushes. All right, and that's the red. So it's the story's coming together of the flower garden. All right, now for the daisies, I go to my favorite brush. This angled brush is a 5/8. And depending on how wide the angle is, I mean, I have several, but I find this one Works great for my flowers, but if you're doing larger projects, I've used fan brushes to do the same thing on larger pieces. So it depends on the size of your piece. Now, the next brush I use, which is one that I used the other day, unfortunately, the number is gone, but it's a round tip, and this is what I use for making my daisies. Now, my clay is Starwhite. I do not put a glaze on this part of it. I like the buffness of the clay to enhance the flowers. Now, with my daisies, I take a lot of white. Now, with this, I do anywhere from 4 to 5 coats because the white is another one of those. It doesn't go away, but it fades out and looks more of a watercolor. And if you want to go with a watercolor effect, then you do 2 to 3 coats. But I like to have the bright white. And these I just put in freehand. I just pick a spot and start taking it from the outside and pull in. Let's move this over so you can see it a little bit. Just take the brush, make sure there's enough glaze on it. I dip it right in. I don't wipe it off. I start as the tip down and then pull in. And as you pull in, lift up. And that gives you your petals. And again, I do 3. And if you look at daisies, you're not always seeing just the top of the daisy. You're doing some that are side angles and just a little bit of the center. You may not see these all that well at the moment, but once I start putting in the detail work, you'll see it. Now, like with this one, I like to put just like a half petal so that it kind of overlaps, but yet doesn't take over. I did start a YouTube channel for myself yesterday, so I can start saving some of these videos on there. And so you can always go to there. It's Arline J Link on YouTube. It's amazing. I set myself some goals, set up a Square website, website, so that I can sell my pottery that way. And I was determined to get the YouTube up and going. It's not 100% yet, but it's there. But as you can see, I keep going around and putting the layers on here. And depending on how hard you push on this brush will determine how wide your petals are. And for those of you who have watched me before, know I love the mountain daisies, which only have 1 row of petals all the way around. When I was a kid, we called them he loves me not. Or they love me not. Whichever way. There we go. You can start seeing them a little bit better as you build up. Now you do have to watch around the edges here. If it starts getting a little too thick, you want to take them down. It's like I said, as they fire, underglazes do not flatten out if they're too thick in one spot. I do paint these on raw clay. I'll throw my cups and bowls and vases one day. The next morning I'll trim them up, put the handles on them. Then I bring them home and paint my designs on those. The only thing is with transporting them back and forth, we don't have that far to go, but you take the chance on damaging them. But I do one-time firings. I'll paint my design on and take it back to the shop the next day, and then I spray my clear on the outside. The inside I do stroke and coats so that I don't have to put clear in there. That it's just, they're already glazed, they're shiny, so I don't have to worry about that once I do the inside colors. But the outside, if I don't clear coat this, it will be more of a matte. So I got the effects of the clay, which will have a clear glaze over top, as well as the flowers. All right, I think I have enough on the white. Now, this is my fun part. This is where I like to... All right, where's my brush? This is where I use an older brush. Not seeing it. But I had it here. I should have. This is a smaller version of it. It's a brush that's... I think I just found it. It was in the water. I keep my old brushes to do this type of work because it gives me the effect that I want. It's another form of stippling. Now with this, I like to use the medium blue or electric blue. I'll put it on my palette. I'm probably going to need a little more than that. And the white. I just want to show you my palette. My colors that I use are around the outside, but I have white in the center because that's the one color that I use with all of them. You can also add a little bit of black to it if you want more of a shading to it, but I like the bright colors. So this is how I do my Elysium. Those are the beautiful ground covers of the blues and the purples, and I think there's pinks too. So let me raise this up a little bit. So I load up my brush. Let's see if you can see this with blue and white. And then I just gently go around. And because it's being stippled, you don't have to put the 3 coats on. And the darker blue does show up. And there we go. So you got the purple irises, the white daisies, the red poppies, and the blue Elysium. Now you can go crazy with all kinds of flowers. I love tiger lilies. Here, I know in Pennsylvania and Virginia, that's the orange wildflower that grows alongside the road. One of my favorites. And wherever I move, I like to take a piece of them with me. But unfortunately, we sold our home, and I didn't get some before we left. Now, for the centers of the flowers, I like the intense yellow. Here's my brush. All right. Don't need a whole lot. And this is V391 from AMACO. I also like to use Teddy Bear Brown. Of the browns, it's just the right shade. I mean, some browns have a tendency to be too dark, other times too light. The Teddy Bear Brown. Now, with painting on top of other glazes like this, I don't need to put the additional coats on. Let's start with the yellow. Now, for the irises, I just put a little line across. Just like that. This pot is bisque fired, okay? Only because I've been taking things a lot back and forth. I will bisque fire these bigger pieces. I especially bisque fire. Right now, everything I have is bisque. I've just been too busy to trying to fill the kiln to fire other people's work that I've been putting my stuff in the bisque in order to get other people's work done. We do firings for local schools and local artists, other potters that don't have their wheels yet, or the kilns yet, and because of the lockdown, they don't have access to it. The poppies, I just fill in the center with some yellow. The daisies are my favorite to fill in. And all I do is load up my brush with the yellow. And I kind of make like an oval circle, just like this. Whoop, took some of the red off. And I don't want them all going in the same direction. But then I come back in with just a little bit of brown and do the bottom half of the daisies. to give you that two-tone effect. So as you can see, the flowers are coming together. Now I will let these dry a little bit, and then I will come back in and do my lines, which I did a sample of yesterday, but I will do it again today for anybody that is new. Now, let's see, where's my thin brush? This is a 5-0, and I recommend trying different brushes. I used to, when I first started doing this, I bought really good brushes, and $10 to $15 a brush. These brushes I found at Joann Fabrics and Michael's. It's a Royal brand, and I really like using them. But I can tell you, my fan brushes I get from Chinese clay art, and they are cheap. But when it comes to just learning really quickly and teaching classes with kids, 50 cents a brush is a lot cheaper than $10 to $15 a brush. All right, but I find, people who do want to continue with the painting or detail painting, I recommend them. They get the better brushes. And everybody has their favorites, but I think there's one here. I'm not sure. Duncan. This is a Duncan brush. This one's even thinner. It's a little flayed right now. I made the mistake of leaving it in the water last night, so it's a little, have to work on that. I don't have a complete piece with me right now, but I do have one in the kiln. The one I painted yesterday is in the kiln right now, so I'll be able to post that tomorrow. Now, with my underglaze, I do like to thin it out, add a little bit of water to it. And you can tell when you put it on, if it looks gray, it's not quite thick enough, but you don't want it real thick. I use a very thin brush that I come in. Duncan brushes are great. I'm sorry, I'm able to see people's comments today. And I'll start at the top doing my flowers. I'm trying to do the best here. I have a contraption I call the spider that I put my camera in, and I left it at the shop. So it's a little complicated here today. And I just use the tip of the brush. I don't necessarily want to connect my lines. I don't want the coloring book effect. Don't forget to put the lines in. On the irises, this is the frilly top. And depending on how much frill you want to add to it. There we go. If you press too hard, it gets thicker. So as you can see, there's one of the flowers. Ooh, I knew what I forgot. Every flower has their leaves. I use chartreuse and leaf green. I like chartreuse to give the background a lighter color. And this I kind of do before I do the lining, because depending on how the flowers are on here. Now with the irises, I add a little bit of green at the bottom. And if I have room where the flowers are, I will put the hint of a stem. And I can tell you, no two vases, no two pots, no two cups are alike. Oh, I knew I forgot that. You can add more flowers to this as you go. Let's see, I'm going to bring a little bit of green up this way. One new technique I have learned is painting upside down. But sometimes you just gotta flip the whole pot, depending on how much green you want. Sometimes I go a little crazy in putting these leaves in, and then I don't like it. So I just like to put a little bit. Now I'm taking the chartreuse with the leaf green and blending it kind of as I paint it. You don't want a definitive line. If you see a line come down like that. I kind of like to soften it. If you can see the line on there, just soften it a little bit. And then come back down in here. Now this is a round brush. I have two of them. One's a little bit smaller. There we go. Just a little bit of green. Sometimes, you know, I've done ones when I've had a lot of the taller things up in the back, and I've done other little flowers. Some of my favorite leaves I can do on the smaller piece. I start out with the, this is my sample. Let's see if I can get in here. I make the basic leaf shape. Oh, I got some black mixed in with them. Oh, where's my, let's get some white. I also use some white for the topper part. Yeah, topper part. My brush is double loaded right now. So you can see the streaks. And I just, it's not very good. The bottom half I'll make a little darker. And you can do that with the greens, or just add a hint of black to give that shade. If I can do this. See? And as you can see, there's some white here at the top. I can see it in the camera. It's just a matter of going from the center and pulling it out and turning it down at the same time. So that's one of my leaves. Simple little leaves is taking the same brush. Let's try this one instead. And I start with the lighter color first. So I'll use the chartreuse. And then I'll build up with the green or black and white, depending on what I'm doing with it. And remember your shading, you know, where you think the sun's coming through. See? And it's a matter of practicing too. Do this on a test tile. Make a test tile of clay, and then just practice. With underglazes, depending on whether you want to get a watercolor effect or you want a solid color, will determine how heavy you're on the brush and how much glaze you use. I've found that anywhere from 3 to 5 coats, especially with the lighter colors, the pinks, the purples, white, they do burn out if you don't put enough on there, but I found with layering more, you do. And with underglazes, they go a long way. Let's see. If you have any questions, you are more than welcome to message me, and I will get back to you. I think this is back to this. All right, so we've got our colors ready to go. Now I can have fun with the lines. For some reason, this is, even though the colors are beautiful as they are, to me it doesn't seem finished. I like having the lines on it. And as you can see there, that line's a little thicker. It's because I didn't clean off the tip of my brush. I kind of twirl it as I pull it through the glaze. That way it loads the brush and thins out the tip. Okay. And I can honestly say I've been doing this design, oh God, 30 some years. Started out on a watering can to wood to actually did it on some gentleman's leg because he wanted it as a tattoo. So I was doing face painting for my church during an event. And he says, "Can you paint that on my leg?" And I said, "Sure." And he went and got it, took a picture of it, and then went to a tattoo artist. So somewhere there's a man out there with one of my flowers on his legs. And it was this design. He liked the colors. I've met some interesting people. Personally, I think tattoos are beautiful, but for me to get one, nah. I'm the type, it's too permanent. I might try henna. I think that looks neat, having that done, but having something permanent, you know, when you move around a lot, as we did as when I was a kid, you learn not to look for that permanency. But I can say I've been very blessed. I was married for almost 27 years when my husband passed away. And now I'm with a wonderful guy here in Virginia. So I've been blessed twice. Now, as you can see, that's how it looks. Now my daisies. This is where you want your brush to go smooth. Make sure it's watered down enough so that it does not drag. All right, and I'll start with one petal and come up. And my lines are thin and dark, or thick and thin. And it's just like I'm sketching it on paper. Add some little lines here and there. And if the line doesn't go all the way around, it's okay. But I know some people like to have, if they do outlines, they want those side lines and they want them to match. So there's one of my daisies. And I know there are other people out there who paint similar to me, and some of them are beautiful. I get a little jealous. I used to be one that put a lot of detail into my work, but in reality, I couldn't charge the price that it was worth. You know, when you spend 10 hours on a mug, there's no way you can charge $300. So I had to learn to be a little less detail. I mean, there are still some work that I do, paintings or whatever, that I will. Now with my poppies, I will come in and add a little dot, just like I did with the daisy. All right. This is, oh, where did I put it? This is jet black, actually, from AMACO. When you're just doing the lines, you only need one coat. But if you're doing other projects, say if you want to do sgraffito, you want to put those two to three coats on it to make sure you're not seeing the streaks. It depends on how you apply it to your techniques. But once your base coats of underglazes are on here, you really only need one coat. Sometimes I do put a white background, depending on what I'm painting. For an example, this is a hummingbird plate that I did. Let's see if I can get it in here. The background is white, but the clay, this is standard 101. It has a light speck to it, just a little bit, and I like that effect. And normally I leave the background, but in this particular one, I wanted the white so that it would pop even more. Fortunately, this is a bowl that cracked on me. So it sits on my desk as a little collection bowl that I collect things in it. You know, where you don't know where to put something, you just toss it in the bowl. There we go. But as I said, I do a lot of my paintings on the raw clay. It's firm enough for me to handle and not leave finger marks. I have done it on very dry clay if I don't get to it right away, but usually I do things in stages. Like I'll go into the shop today and I'll throw some things and I'll let them sit overnight, trim them tomorrow, add handles to the cups if they need what they need or details of anything else, and bring them home tomorrow. Well, I was, but not so much now, but I can bring them home, paint them, take them back the next day, spray coat them with my clear, and put them in the kiln on a preheat. Now, depending on how wet your pieces are, I can preheat anywhere from 3 to 8 hours. If I've made something in the morning and I want it in the kiln that night, I do an 8-hour fire preheating. It's a little hard on your elements as far as the lifespan, but you just have to make sure they're dry. And one thing to do is leave the top peep out and check for moisture. And you do that throughout the day with a clear glass. And you hold the glass over top of the peep plug, and if by any chance, if there's any steam, that means there's still steam inside. So you want to even preheat. I've done 12-hour preheats when things are really wet. You do take a chance on something exploding in the kiln. And trust me, I've had that happen. But I'm even more careful now with doing that. This is nothing like putting 40 hours into a piece and it exploding. When painting on the leather hard clay, it's the same. It's the same. Just what I did here. I know this purple burns out, so I'll put 4 to 5 coats of the purple, 2 to 3 coats on first, and then start adding in the white. Definitely 4 to 5 coats with the whites, the reds. Depending on how watered down your red is, mine's a little bit loose, so I would say close to 3 coats, and then started blending in the white. Try it out. Roll out some clay, make a slab, experiment with your underglazes. Put one layer, put another row where there's 2 coats, another one where there's 3 coats, and so on. And then blend some so you can see what they look like. To me, they're just like paints. I've been painting all my life, drawing since I could hold a pencil, and making something from scratch with pottery to the final product is just really fulfilling. Thank you. Oh, hi everybody. See, there's more people coming. Now, with this one, like I said, this fills up pretty much the side of the pot. I will put another one on the back. I don't know, I kind of like it just the one side. What do you think? But normally when I do this type of design, I have 12 mugs sitting here, and I'll do all the purple and all the red and all the white and do it like a production line. To sit and paint one piece takes more time than it does to do the production part of it. And it's one thing I learned when I used to paint the watering cans. I would get special requests to paint a watering can, and it would take me longer to paint that one than it would to paint 12 watering cans with this design on it. I could paint 12 cans within an hour, where with painting one new design, it can take 2 to 3 hours. And the final touch on this is the white. I showed this the other day. I used the 360. Take the end of my brush, the rounded end, dip it in the white, and just make dots. And I just come up You can do it on the clay too, because it's more of a buff clay. And these are, there's a little flower. I think they're called snowbells or something like that. Now these I do want to be raised a little bit, so they are a little bit of a rise to them. Let's see if you can see and I do only a couple of them throughout. Like I said, I'm not painting real flowers. I'm just giving you the impression of flowers. And it's just very relaxing. One of the things is day to day we can get very stressed out. Yeah, I think a couple flowers on the back would be nice. Usually with my cups, and I have a few of them over here, I'll do the front and the back. And I don't just do this particular floral design. I do daisies. I'll do some with all just daisies or sunflowers. Matter of fact, I have some sunflowers in the kiln right now. And I make different size mugs. Let's see here. This particular size is much smaller. But I have a couple customers who are petite women. They don't like these big cups. They like something sitting in their hand. And one of the most popular ones is my hummingbirds from the bowl that you just saw. So don't make just one size mug. Make different sizes. Okay. All right. Let's see. Also with my pieces on the bottom, since the daisy's my favorite, I use that as part of my signature. Okay, they walked off with my brush. There. I put my water behind so I don't always see it. I will do a daisy on the bottom. And again, this is just bringing it down and lightly pulling it up for your petals. I know you can't really see the color here, but I just do a small daisy with the underglaze. This is my signature. Stamps are nice. I've seen them, I've used them, I've carved into the bottoms. But I like just adding a little more of me. So as you can see, there's the daisy, the center, and then I add a little bit of brown. And then viola, my signature. Need a little more water. If your glaze starts to drag or a little thick, add the water. You can tell when you first write on it as to whether it's too thin or not. Let's see if I can come and do this way. I think I just smushed some flowers. All right. The thinner the brush, the better. Unless you like the thick black lines. I personally don't. And if you're anything like me, you stick your brush in your mouth along with the paint. So I'm going to go back and do a leaf. There it is, chartreuse. I start with chartreuse and just make a leaf. Add a little bit of white and then the darker green. Voila. Now with my leaves, I will do a little bit of a line down the center. And just, I don't follow the line of the paint. I'll add some squiggles to it. And let's see. Sign my pot this way. Now I sign my signature is different than what I sign important papers with. And you do want your name to be clear. Nothing's more frustrating than you pick up a beautiful piece of pottery and you don't know who did it or where it came from. And that's my signature. Hopefully it's not backwards to you. But you missed me seeing doing the red flower. Could you do a couple of petals on your test mug? Sure. All right. For the red, where are we hiding? Okay. Oh, there it is. I use Radiant Red from AMACO. Now this one is a little thinner than I like it to be. So I've been kind of leaving the lid off of it to kind of dry it out, but it'll do. I start out, it's just a matter of 2 strokes, like that. And that's the beginning of the flower. As you can see, it's really wet. Let's see if I can dry this brush off. As it dries, I'll put a second coat on. All right, and then sometimes a third coat, depending on how red I want it to be. And that's where I recommend you do some testing, making up a test tile. So now with this coat, I will take my red and I will double load the brush. You can see that there's red and white on there. And I start at the one side first and then blend it out to the edge. Okay. Now sometimes I may go back in if I don't like where, like this one here, that white line, I'll blend it out just a little bit. And I apologize for the lighting. I left my spider thing at the work at the shop, so I wasn't able to do it. I might come in with a little more red when it dries and add just a little bit more white. All right. Then I take some yellow and just come in and fill in that. Let's see if I can grab some more yellow. Okay. You might want to add a little bit of brown to it, but you don't want to do the whole thing. You just want to do the bottom half, and then I outline it. Now, as far as the iris, let's see. That is done with the purple. And now I prefer to use amethyst or a darker purple, but I'm currently out of it, even at the shop. But this is lavender, and I do have some here. Once again, I use a wide brush. Well, it's about 1/2 inch. I also have one that's an angled one that I've been using, this one. An angle brush. This one is 5/8. Now with the purple, I am going to have to put 4 coats on, at least 4 to 5. This will be going up to my YouTube channel. Now let's see. I'm going to do the iris on the bottom. And it's just a matter of an S stroke. And that should be it. It looks like a little bird. Come back. And because it is a lighter color, I will put at least 3 coats on. The 4th and 5th coat is where I add the detail. And once again, I have the purple and the white. Start at the top and just come down. And that's the beginning of your iris. I do like the ruffled irises at the top. So I will load my brush double again and just gently tap like that. And I think with it being spring, this is appropriate. We're currently renting a house until we find something that we like. And I miss having a garden. And there's an iris. Add a little bit of yellow. I just do 1 line. I used to do 2, but it like I said, it got a little more complicated. And the brush. Take a little bit of green. I start off with the chartreuse. Now this is where, like some of my pieces, this is where I would add the green. And then bring it down as a stem. You could also add your bigger stems this way. And then the second and third coat is a mixture of the darker greens and a little bit of white. There we go. Oh, got some blue in with that. So depending on what you want to do, if you just want to do just irises. Look at your flowers in the garden. When you go to the garden center, check out your flowers. See how they look. They're not all front on like this. If I missed any comments, I apologize. I will try and answer them a little bit later. I know it's getting a little late here. I have to go into the shop. We have a shop here in town, a studio. So we go there for a couple hours just to get out of the house. And that's where my wheels and my kilns are. They're part of the community here. As you can see the lines. Now, if you're one with an eye and you don't mind not doing these lines, I mean, you can paint with these just like you do on canvas and get that realistic look. And I've tried that, but it just never seemed finished until I added my lines on this particular design. And there you go. And that's your iris. Hopefully that helped. This one is a 5/0 from Royal. I also use a 00. I have some that are shorter than this, that have maybe like 6 hairs. So depending on the amount, the thickness of your lines. Now if I wanted to, I could make these lines nice and thick. To me, that's too bold. You know. I just like the hint. That's like taking a marker to your piece. I'm not crazy about that, but there are some techniques that it would, or, you know, depending on the type of artist that you are. Okay, well, I have to get ready, finish getting ready, I should say. Hopefully I remember to bring home my spider that holds my camera. That would be much better for as far as displaying. Like I said, if you have any questions, please, you know, send a message to me. We can video chat, you know, just the two of us, or I can do another live video. Once these pieces are fired, I will post them. And once again, that's Painting Flowers with Arline Link. And I will be saving this to my YouTube channel. And if you have one, send it to me so I can check your work out. Everybody have a wonderful day. The sun is shining bright here. I'm not sure whether it's cool or hot, but we'll find out. You have a wonderful day and take care. Bye.